anyway, I found interesting, and we start the study of Daniel, and I said, when I read Daniel and look, and I really think when I look at the lesson today, what kind of lesson can we possibly have from I'm not going to eat that food?
Right.
And it really is to me. And then I come to church, and Rick preaches a sermon about predestiny and all, and whatever that was, but not really predestiny, but that God chose us, and in a word to me, we are predestined to continually conform to the likeness of Jesus Christ. And God's timeless. And we talked about last week, someone said I wasn't as mature as they were, which I think that all the time in my work, but someone said that as I grew older, I would mature in Christ. And I think, well, that's well, yeah. So, but it is amazing to me when you think about it that God did plan it, and we think, and God says this: I chose you. I knew you were going to choose me, and you will conform to the likeness of Jesus Christ, so that you will be a brother in Christ, and he will be only the first of the children of God and have many likenesses with him. And God doesn't say you might. He doesn't say, God says you will conform to the likeness of Jesus Christ. And I think about that, and I thought, now, how could Rick's service go with my Sunday school lesson? And it does every dadgum Sunday. How? Well, how is that?
Because you call him up.
Well, yeah, it is. But it's almost because God called us to conform to Jesus Christ. And that's what this whole world is about. And that's what the whole Bible is about, is our predestination. And are we predestined the way we think predestined? I don't know that. I don't know that God picked me to be one of his children. I personally think he did that way, but I don't really know that. But one thing I do know that God predestined is that if once you are a child of God, you will conform, and as you're conforming, then every lesson in this thing interacts with every other lesson in this thing. There is no independence in this, because what's it all about? It is all about how we are going to conform, and conform to what? To the likeness of Jesus Christ. And so when we argue about predestination, we can argue about all kinds of stuff on the front end, and I think that one's easy to argue about because we just can't understand that. But we can understand conforming to a finished product. I think we can understand that God says, I'm going to give you instructions of how to conform continually to Jesus Christ. And what else does he say after that? Well, I will tell you what he says is, and you will listen, and you will be conformed. And that's the difficult part we have, is to think that, so God doesn't give me a choice to conform. He says not. He says you will. Okay? Now, does he give you a choice how to go about that conforming? Somehow he does, and I think that's where I'm going to go with the lesson today. We see in what we just read, which was Ezekiel and Daniel, we see two ways of conforming to Jesus Christ. We see one guy that goes around preaching, and he lays on one side for, how long did he lay on the side? 7 years, and then rolled over and laid on the other side for 7 years, and boy, that's kind of harsh, isn't it? And then we see Daniel here we're going to talk about, and what did Daniel do? He conformed. How did Daniel conform? Well, that's what we're going to learn, but Daniel conformed by fitting into the society that God put him in, not by making a big stink. What do you think Daniel would have done if God didn't make it so that he gained weight when he ate the vegetables and water? Well, I know what Daniel would have done. He would have conformed to Jesus Christ and done whatever the next step God had him to do. Would that have been that he would have said, well, fine, then just kill me? If that's what God said, yeah.
I believe that.
But God may have said, just like he told Paul, no, I want you to eat those pigs and catfish. That's what I need you to do to show what I am. And what do we show as we live in life? What's every one of us trying to show as we go through life to other people?
The light of Jesus.
There you have it. That's what we're all trying to show. And there's lots of ways to show off the light, isn't there? I mean, I just think about a campground and we want to show the light. What do we have? We got rope lights, and we got fish lights, and we got lobster lights, and we got gist lights. We got all kinds of lights. But what are we trying to do?
Imitate Jesus. Really.
We're trying to make light and show it off, aren't we? And that's what I kind of got struck with this is we all want to show Jesus light. One of us might have a lobster on it. One may have a chicken on it. Whatever. But what is it? she just can't stand it. But whatever it is, what are we trying to show? The light of Jesus Christ. And one thing for certain is you can't hide that light, can you? And you can't fake that light, can you? If it ain't the light of Jesus Christ, someone is going to see that, and then what's going to happen?
And you're going to make them stumble.
Then you're going to make someone else stumble. And so that's kind of what I just thought today, because it just amazes me again. Every time I get ready to do a Sunday school lesson, Rick has preached the dadgum thing right before I get here. I mean, I'm going to talk to him. I think I'll make a meeting with him today and tell him to quit.
This tweet that Sunday school is canceled more time.
Yeah. Maybe you need to talk to the prayer group because at 8 o'clock we meet for prayer.
Yeah,
and we always pray that the Sunday school and the pastor and everything along.
It's working, isn't it?
Most of us need to hear something more than once in order to get it and really, use it. And so we get twice on Sunday morning, isn't it?
And it's good, isn't it? We love it, don't we?
So this was, and our lesson is Daniel, and it's Daniel 1 is the passage today. And, Daniel is another in the group, and him and Ezekiel were contemporaries. Daniel, part of the Persian government, basically, and brought over there strictly for that purpose. I mean, and that's what I think we're going to learn in our verses. Ezekiel, a cheerleader, perhaps you would say, to keep the Israelites positive, and so different looks from at the same time. So, and this is draw the line, and they say, what should I do when I recognize spiritual compromise in my life? And that's what we're going to learn. That is a tough question, because it's easy to say, gosh, run. Now this is what I'm going to say. We're conforming to Jesus Christ, right? When Jesus Christ was presented with spiritual compromise, did he always run? He did not, did he? Now, are we as tough at Christ of conforming a horrible situation into something positive for Christ? I certainly am not. And so sometimes, as Rick says, sometimes running is the key. But I think when we say, what should I do when I recognize spiritual compromise in my life, I think still it is conform to the likeness of Jesus Christ. And that's what I would say the answer is, which is much tougher than just saying get out. And that's what Daniel's going to do here. So we're going to talk about Daniel and at least how he did it. They start with, and basically the Persians had taken Jerusalem, and this is what happens. This is 3 through 5 is what we do first. So the king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief of his court officials, to bring some of the Israelites from the royal family and from the nobility, young men without any physical defect, good-looking, suitable for instruction in all wisdom, knowledgeable, perceptive, and capable of serving in the king's palace, and to teach them the Chaldean language and literature. The king assigned them daily provisions from the royal food and from the wine that he drank. They were to be trained for 3 years, and at the end of that time they were to serve in the king's court. Anything exciting about that?
Well, to me, I look at this first thing. You ask yourself, why would the king want to do this? You know, what is the motive, or what is the agenda to invest government money and resources into training these foreigners into the governmental service? And at first you think, I wonder why King Nebuchadnezzar wants to bring the best of the best, as far as he's concerned, into his fold and train them in Babylonian customs and courtesies. And it is an excellent idea on how to assimilate culture. That's what we do. That's the best way to gain control. It may not be this generation. It might be the next generation. But look, now they are incorporated into the customs of this new foreign government. They can then train and pretty much cater, put them in positions of authority. They like the way they live. And then their generations are accustomed to being, well, Persian.
Yeah.
Excellent idea. You know, long-term goal. It works. It works really good.
It kind of reminds me, it makes me think about in 1924, our country closed the doors to immigration until 1964, so that the people that had already immigrated could assimilate into our culture.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't know that.
Do you think God had a hand in that?
Absolutely.
Well, and where I'm coming from here, if you look back in 2 Kings and you remember Hezekiah when he had Babylonian or Assyrian envoys came and he showed them everything in the palace and all the everything. And Isaiah came in and said, "Who was that?" And he goes, "Oh, showing off." He says, "What'd you show him?" He said, "Everything." And he goes, "Well, those people are going to come in, they're going to take that, and they're also going to take members of your household," which Daniel and his 3 friends were direct descendants of Hezekiah. So where I'm going with this, did God cause Nebuchadnezzar to do this particular thing, or was that something they always did? Sounds like what you said, that was just a common practice, but God's hand is always in everything, and so we can see that after the fact, that they were placed there for a reason.
And you can almost look where you say God take everything and use it to the good of,
Right.
Because you could almost see this as a punishment. I mean, it was a punishment for Hezekiah, it sounded like, didn't it? And then was it a punishment for Daniel and them? It was certainly a challenge. Was it to the good of God in the long run?
yes, because remember Nebuchadnezzar started having everybody bow to their God. So,
Yeah. So
I see it differently.
we don't allow different.
The Jewish people, some of the smartest people in the world, is do a web search and get a list of all of the people that won the Nobel Peace Prize and see how many of them are Jewish. You ever watch Translation? The Sunday school book got these things out. They took these boys over, he picked the brightest, and he made the eunuchs out of all of them. so they weren't distracted with things that most men are distracted with. And so these were his computers of that day. They were brilliant folks. But the thing I would like to know, and the Bible doesn't tell, I'd like to be able to interview the parents of these 4 boys. How did they teach these boys to stick to this? If you go back with Joseph, I've heard all kinds of sermons about how he was such a spoiled teenager. His brothers hated him all that. He ended up in prison as an innocent fellow. I've worked with prisoners, and I've never met one of them that had a good attitude because he got sent to prison. There's only one that I ever talked to that prison seemed to help him. He got sent to prison for stealing a bunch of copper wire. We think it's not much of a offense today. And he said the first day down there, he said, "You know how to fly a team?" And he said, "I sure do." And he said, "Catch something out there in the field." And he said, "I didn't know 2 mules worked together, which harness they went on." And he said, "They beat the devil out of me on that leather strap." He said, the second day, I was the first team out of the field. He said, after 18 months, they called me in and they said, "Boy, we're going to let you go home, and we don't want to ever see you again." He says, "If my Bible is too big or I'm singing too loud in the choir, will be the only reason I'll ever come back." And so these boys were sent over there and treated terribly, but yet they had such good attitudes and had such servant spirit. So their parents had to teach them this as small children, or they wouldn't be acting like that when they were 20 and 25.
Yeah, I wondered that, and I did not. So when I read, I didn't actually find where he made them eunuchs, but I thought that when you read that, that's likely the case. And I think it is easy, and I say because what this says, it's easy to think, boy, he brought them over and really treated them right, didn't he? No, he didn't bring them over and treat them right. He brought them over and said, I'm going to make you a eunuch, and this is how you will act. This is what you will learn. This is what you're going to eat. This is what you're going to drink. I mean, it was prison. I mean, it was prison, and so it's easy to look. What I said, and that's what I go to. To me, what God did is He put them into the world. God took His people who weren't in the world. They were sitting in Sunday school class one day, obviously, and they learned a lot in Sunday school class. And then God took them and said, "No, I'm going to put you out in the world. Watch this." And they woke up. They weren't in Sunday school class anymore.
But weren't they acting too much like the world, and that's why He took them over to prison?
I think that's what Gerald said. The country was acting like the world.
But there was always a remnant.
These kids.
These
I
were
mean, isn't that what you're saying, Gerald? These kids.
They had a character that others didn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just spotted if you.
And again, you would look at and say, I bet they said, "Gosh, why am I being punished like this?
Yeah.
Why am I being punished like this? I've done good. I know all the teachings. And here I am out in the world." And that's what I asked. What situations we have similar to this, or do we?
Well, I've got a similar situation where I was put in a position that I had to make a choice. With my previous employer, we had a job down in Florida, and so he had flown out on the weekend. I couldn't fly out on Sunday night. We had, I don't remember, Aaron or somebody was doing Bible drill or something, and so I said, "I'll fly out Monday morning." So he got down there over the weekend. I was there on Monday morning. We did our week's worth of stuff, installations and stuff for the software we were doing, and we come back, and he wanted me to fill out the expense report. Well, his flight was $750. Mine was $350 because I happened to pick a Monday that was in some kind of 2-week window that I got it for half price. And so I filled out the expense report for $350. And he sent it back to me and said, "No, it's $750." And I said, "No, it's not. Here's my ticket." And it's like, "Well, the government's paying for it. It doesn't matter." And I said, "Yes, it does. You can go to jail for that. That's lying. And I'm not going to be a part of it." And he was down in Dallas at the time when all this was going on, and he actually flew back to confront me about it and said, do this, and I said no. And so I had to make a choice. I stood up and said, no, I will not do this. Here's mine. I've got my name on it. And I submitted it that way. Now, well, I don't know if he changed it or not after the fact. I had no knowledge of that. But from that time on, I lasted there about another 6 or 7 months. And it just got to be unbearable, and I left. The other 3 people in the office, each individually told me how proud they were of me for standing up for my beliefs. But it was a difficult thing because it cost me my job, basically. And I ended up getting another one, which was better. So again, back to what Rick said, all things work together for good. It all worked out for a purpose, but you have to make that choice sometimes to, am I going to, what's $350? Not a big deal either way. I couldn't see his point, and he couldn't see mine. But you are raised a certain way, like Gerald was talking about, and the Bible clearly says that's wrong. So you have to stand up for that choice.
And God allowed you out of that situation.
Right.
He didn't allow Daniel out. He basically, your thing of that would be that your boss said, okay, fine, do the 350, but I'm still your boss, and we're still going to try to cheat. And then you're stuck in that situation. And 10 years, 15, 30 years later, you're still in that situation. And that's what happens then. What else? What other kind of places are we in like this that we are today? Just our life? I mean, are we, is it that dramatic where we're at today?
I see a lot of innocent people suffering. All kinds of ways. I mean, these boys didn't do anything to deserve the way they were treated. And sometimes you do what's right even though you get the short end of the stick.
And I'm going to ask, just say, so we're back to God calls this.
Or allowed it.
Caused or allowed.
Huh?
I want to argue.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's the tough thing is where's God's play in this? And I think you just have to say, but one thing I can say, God does have a play in this. Whichever way you want to look at it, if you want to say aloud, if you want to say calls it, what you've got to see is God has a hand in this, and God has a hand in where we go, what we do, how we react every day.
Well, as you go on through Daniel, pretty soon you find out this is just part of a bigger plan that God has.
Isn't that always the case if you can look?
It's just, I'm in this little time frame,
Yeah.
Does anyone?
It's hard to see that though.
No,
Right.
I will say that don't all of us have a horrible spot in our life where we can look back and it's clear what God's plan was with that. I mean, that's I think you have. I mean, my simple thing that I have that I not like this, but when we got married, me and Cindy, and the way our match works, getting going residency, is you pick where you want to go, and then the schools you go apply to also pick who they want. But basically, you go where you want to go if it's in reason. Well, I did well in school, so I should have been
And they give
able
you 3 choices.
to. Yeah, I should have been able to go wherever I wanted to. Well, I picked 2 in Little Rock, and one of them where there's just no possible way I'm not going to Little Rock. Well, match day comes out, and guess what? I'm going to Kansas City. And unbeknownst to me, about 6 months before that, someone called and said, "Hey, Mark, do you want a job for money?" Well, I've never made money. I'm a student. How much money? Well, $50 an hour. Oh, my goodness. Sure, I want a $50 an hour job. Well, turns out when all's said and done, the money I made for that job was exactly what I needed for the down payment on a house when I went to Kansas City.
part of a larger plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and when you
exactly.
look back at it,
You
I
can
mean, and
see
I
it.
say all the time, people still, well, why did you go to Kansas City? Why did you have to go? What happened? And the answer is simple. You just want to say, because God needed me to go to Kansas City, period, end of story. Who's to blame? Well, God. Well, didn't someone say something to blackball you, whatever? It sure seems that way. Or God just said, whoops, don't write his name down here, check it here instead. Don't know, but the bottom line is I can look and say, God planned that before I knew I was going to Kansas City. God planned for me to be able to go to Kansas City and to be happy when I got there.
And you made a way to have the money for a
yes,
down payment
yeah,
now.
so
We don't know that when it's happening.
no,
We have to
and,
right.
back in
and that's
hindsight,
so
put it all
hard to
back
do.
together for that.
Right.
But I'm going to say we'll move on. So basically, in my view, here is, and I think Gerald said it best. God took some good. I want to say Christians because it's Christians now in our mind, but took some good boys that had learned a lot more godly and threw them to the dogs. And what is your reaction going to be to that?
This is 4 out of how many of them?
Yeah, and there's more of those, and that's what's interesting
Right.
when you read it. When we read about the other boys in here, they were all Israelites, weren't they? You know, when you read and it says they compared them to the other boys and that ate this and they were fatter.
Could have been other
Right.
countries that they had
Yeah.
Exactly.
taken over.
Anyway,
So
right.
it doesn't really
They were
say.
kind of slaves.
It sort of leads you to believe that way.
Whatever.
I've had a funny thought over the years as I've read this. I'll take it back here in Daniel, where it says anyway, what he did, after Daniel and his 3 friends looked better, that he took away the meat and wine, and the others were eating, drinking, and gave them simpler food. And I thought, I bet Daniel and his friends are really popular.
They probably got a real pink belly.
Make you a little healthy. All right. So and
Took away
this
the
is
burgers and fries.
this is what we want to do, and I think it is. But I also want you to know how you do it. So it is. And that section 8 through 10 is act boldly on principle, and we all want to do that. But the key is, how do you do that? So Daniel determined that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine he drank. So he asked permission from the chief official not to defile himself. God had granted Daniel favor and compassion from the chief official, yet he said to Daniel, "My lord the king assigned your food and drink. Now I'm afraid of what would happen if you saw your faces looking thinner than those of the other young men your age. You would endanger my life with the king." So he does act boldly, doesn't he?
Mhm.
But does he act out? I mean, I don't know. How's he act boldly? That's what I'll ask.
Well, he brought it up to start with, so he actually went to the chief, whatever, Ashpenaz, and said, "I don't want to eat this." And then he allowed him to say, "Okay." And so it was kind of tactful as you get through it. It's like, okay, he could have just flat out, like you said, well, just kill me now then, because I'm not going to do this. But he didn't say that. He just said, okay, let's try a different approach, which
But
I
then
think is
he
wisdom.
gave him a solution. He didn't give him a problem. He gave Ashpenaz a solution for it because he said, test us and we'll.
Very good.
So see, when you give a solution to.
What kind of grade you give for something like that?
That's great.
Yeah.
Child, say
Right.
Baby girl.
Seriously, people, I'm learning. I'm telling you, you come, in order to get moved up in life, you don't come to problem, gripe, and complain. You give them a solution, and you make them say, "Oh, that's a good idea."
Exactly.
So
Let them think it's theirs.
that's it.
But
Women do that quite
they
often.
Daniel used it as leverage, though, to get what he wanted, because he knew that the chief would be in big trouble if these boys looked puny. You know, like, okay, what we got? We got you're starving yourselves. You know, like prisoners will do sometimes.
Right.
You know, we can't have that. So there was some leverage placed against the chief here, and he kind of thought to himself, he probably reasoned this out like, okay, I'll do whatever it takes to get you guys looking good and healthy. Okay, if it takes eating the food you want to and bypassing the king's food, so be it. I don't care. Just look good.
Well, it was only 10 days. Daniel gave them a 10-day thing. Try it for 10 days. Well, over a 3-year period, 10 days is a drop in the bucket. And so he wasn't really in any danger of trying it. What did he have to lose? 10 days didn't mean anything. You couldn't tell much in 10 days except that you did.
I think one thing you do need to remember back to what Gerald said here. Now Daniel, we know when we read the whole thing, God interacted with Daniel, gave him special gifts. This is Daniel that's probably 12 or 13 years old and has just been castrated and wound up in some place he doesn't know. And as we know, God hasn't said, hey, do this and I'll make your life profitable. As we know, Daniel's scared to death here, saying, gosh, I feel like I have to do this, but I don't think, at least as we know, God hadn't promised him a good outcome, has he? Daniel probably had read Romans 8 by now.
Well, he definitely had read Leviticus, or his parents taught him Leviticus on what they could and couldn't eat. Because it wasn't just that doesn't look too good. He was horrified that, wait a minute, that stuff, I can't eat that stuff. It says so in the Bible that I'm not supposed to eat that. And that's how he's been raised for however many years, and he just can't.
But some of that food had been defiled.
Right. I mean, he didn't know where it came from. He knew some of it definitely was not on the list of things allowed to eat, and the other stuff he just didn't know.
What, Gerald?
If you go back to 1900, the average life expectancy was 47 years. You go to New Orleans and go through a 2-square blocks Jewish cemetery and look at those tombstones in 1900, they were living to be 70 and 75 years of age. Why did Jewish people live twice as long as Gentile people? So diet and cleanliness.
Because they live by God's laws, which I've always said, if you took the early laws are laws of public health. I mean, that's what they are, and that you're right. What I said, and I think we are put in this today. Daniel acts boldness on his beliefs, even though he thought, well, I got no choice. And how many times were we faced with that, where we're in a situation, we know it's not godly, we know it's not right, but we say, well, I just got no choice, I got to do this anyway. And yeah, anyway, how many times were we faced with that? And how many times do we act boldly, and how many times do we use the excuse, well, there's just no choice.
You gotta do it.
I got to do it.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Somehow I think he did this cheerfully. I don't think he had a long face.
Seems that way, doesn't it?
I also had another thought on this too. Daniel and Unit worked together, and these guys looked better in 10 days, and I thought, I wonder if we chucked our Cokes and Cheetos and
Hey.
Listen, you have no fear of anyone checking their Cokes and Cheetos. We're safe.
Well, I wouldn't still be here if I did that.
Right.
We're still
My body
safe.
cannot
That's
resist.
Yeah, Cokes and Cheetos. I learned to love Cheetos and GA caps, so they're okay.
So anyway, it is tough, and we're stuck. We are put in those situations, and we have a choice to make. And we do know that God says, "I use all things to work for good," don't we? But boy, isn't that hard to keep in mind when you're going, or I won't say hard, impossible.
I think at least what I'm going through right now is I have a thankfulness, even though this is a horrible situation. I know that this journey that I'm going through, it's going to bring good. So if you have that, to me, when you're experiencing something, you can't explain that to somebody, especially someone who's hurting. You can't explain that to people. Like when there's a loss of a loved one, it's a time thing, time. And so Daniel, I think, over time, he eventually really, because he was put in a high position. I mean, I think he saw that and was thankful looking back,
Looking back, yeah. And I say, and that's what, when you talk about the maturity that we have, and what we're maturing to
right.
is Jesus Christ. And we've, however it works, Jesus is a person. But what did Jesus have? Absolute confidence and knowledge that God works all things to good. As we mature and reach our predestiny of being like Jesus Christ, what are we able to do? You said it last week. We're able to see that a little more clearly every day, aren't we? Every day we walk in Christ, we're able to see a little more clearly every day that, you know what, God does use all things to good.
For the people who are called according to his purpose. Rick stated that out very clearly today. He says this doesn't apply to anybody who don't believe in Jesus.
So
I just need to make sure we say that.
Yes, hear that point. Yes.
It was very tactful.
That section is be prepared for tests. This is 12 through 15. Please test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then examine our appearance and the appearance of the young men who were eating the king's food, and deal with your servants based on what you see. He agreed with them about this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, they looked better and healthier than all the young men who were eating the king's food. Now, I say, just being a doctor, why do they drink wine? There you go. Because the water was not purified. Alcohol was. So they drank wine because it was healthy.
Yeah.
So you look at this, and they're eating, you think, raw vegetables and drinking unpurified water. Well, you didn't just expect them not to get the nutrition. You expected them to get sick. And so, again, that's why the 10 days was plenty of time, because you expected them to get sick then. And so we have a hard time thinking back to the context of when this happened, because we haven't lived there very, some of us have probably been in some situations like that, but by and large, we haven't lived there. I said we had this kind of funny, not quite, but when we went to Canada this year, well, we don't take water in with us, or all the drink we have comes out of the lake. Well, you have to boil it, and you have to purify it, and then you can drink it. So we get there Wednesday morning, and it's about 80 degrees that day. Well, we didn't have any ice, and we didn't have any purified water. That's easy. Just boil it up, and you'll have some in a minute, right? Yeah, everyone know how long it takes boiled water to cool off?
One of those little contraptions where you put your water in.
I had one of those. It worked real well in the RV. So here we are, and we've got hardly any water for the day except hot water, and you really think, gosh, I'll be fine to drink that lake water. It probably won't. So anyway,
you pop open a Coke.
We didn't have those either.
we didn't have anything.
Dr. Martin, do you think maybe God made sure the water was pure when we drank it?
Well, I think absolutely he did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me too.
I mean, I
That's part of the big plan.
I think that's it. Yes, this was God's plan, but certainly
They didn't need to.
certainly the chief government man didn't know God had that plan.
Yeah.
I would say Daniel didn't really know God had that plan. Daniel just trusted that this is what I need to do. But again, it was a thing, and I think that's something you have to keep in mind when the eunuch says the king's going to be mad at me. He didn't know God. The king was God. Okay, so the eunuch, the government man, he's got a pretty big choice. Yeah, believe this little kid who says he knows some God, or believe my king? And that's a tough choice. And I would say, in general, much tougher than the choice we have to make from time to time to follow God's path. I mean, we usually are, I know that's bad, I know this is good, I know this is what God wants me to do. I know this didn't, but I don't really have a choice, so I'm going to have to go here. This eunuch had no idea. Daniel probably had very little idea, and yet they still went the direction that God had planned, I guess I would say. And I just said here, note the confidence in Daniel's stance. He did not need to ask over and over, just act as directed. Are we able to do what God wants without questioning the results? And that's the thing I think you see Daniel did here. He proceeded with confidence with no basis for that confidence. Other than that, God's with me, and if God's with me, who can? Have you read that yet?
Well, but
Was
he
it? No,
they knew the history of the Jewish people and how God had worked in so many ways. So he had something to fall back on. He knew God could do this if he wanted to.
See, I don't think that God I think God doesn't tell us to question him. I think God invites us to question him so we can learn more about him. Does that make sense? I don't know if so I think that's part of our journey of becoming more intimate with him. Like, why are you, what is going to be on the other side of that? I think he gives us insight in that a little bit to give us more hope. I don't think God asks us to do something blindly. I think he gives us a brain to do things that's right. You know what I mean? I mean, like, for instance, Abraham, when he went to go up the mountain, he told his servant, we'll be right back. I don't think that he had a hope. He knew God was going to test him, but he knew that he had an insight to me. I don't think that he just said, go do this. God gave us a brain.
I think Daniel just wanted to continue on with the lifestyle that he had.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
I don't think he was looking out here at the end result. I don't think, I can't. I just have to live a day at a time and try to do what I perceive to be God's will for me and not mess up. And then the results will come. I just leave those to him.
Right.
But I may not know them for way down the road.
I think that comes to something I tell people sometimes. If you want to know if you're walking in God's will, just walk.
That's it.
One step.
And if I ain't walking, I know I ain't walking in God's will. But if I really trust what God says is, I will use all things to the good.
And it's about faith. I think that's what it boils down to. It's just total, you're blind. In a sense, you are. There's a hope out there.
And
So,
you get more mature. And I think that's the thing that still is hard to understand is I'm a baby, and God says, just like I know I'm going to mature, God says, you will mature more towards, and I think still that's the key, towards the likeness of Jesus Christ. And that's still astounding to me when you think about it, and that I'm actually conforming to the likeness of Jesus Christ. It's scary because, boy, think how far you have to go. I mean, really, if you get
eternity.
If you get there, think how scary that is when you think, oh my gosh, he is going to make me like Jesus Christ. And boy, I am not right now.
I don't think it's the making. I think it's our desire that the Holy Spirit, we're desired for good. I mean, it you know what I mean? It's like a paradox. We're going to conform. It's because what's bad? People say, well, why is Christianity so bad? Right? Well, God is good. He's the only thing that's good. So to me is.
And it may be that once sin's gone, we are
right.
all at that level. And you
We'll have
just
that, our brain will be used 100% instead of 10%, right?
yeah. So, yeah. Interesting though.
And
not-
saying, you
Not
know,
only that, but you figure if we had faith of a mustard seed, we'd be doing good.
moving mountains.
So I guess we work our whole life for that. We just had that,
Just a little bit.
Very,
just a little bit.
so,
We'd be doing good.
so the good news is you don't have to know the answer to those questions. You just keep trying to do the correct thing.
Mhm.
And that's the last section. Go ahead.
Just for me, from my personal
That's not-
standpoint, I don't get up every day focusing on sobriety because that's the end result.
Mhm.
But I know if I live the right way, that'll happen. And I don't get out there, so to speak.
And that kind of what that maturity thing is on anything.
Yeah.
I don't wake up focusing purely on being a good Christian. And, you know, as time goes, as I mature, I find things that once I did, I just don't do anymore. I just don't want to do them anymore. And you don't have to focus. But there are things almost every day that you do have to say, whoops,
It's a choice.
there's one I'm going to have to choose now,
It's
a
a choice.
new one.
Even if it's just flipping through the channels on your TV.
So,
Leave it there or you change it.
and this is the last part that it is, and this is 17 through 19, and it is the way you get through. It's what we're all talking about, is trust God for wisdom. That's why I know y'all are such a wise class that we always get there before we're at the end of the lesson. Or y'all read the lesson and just want to. Anyway, trust God for wisdom. I'm going to stop right here and say, I was talking, anyone that's come to my office knows I spend more time talking about God and stuff than I do doctoring often, but I was talking to a Sunday school teacher this week, and she was astounded when I said, oh yeah, my class reads and is prepared to discuss the lesson before they show up, and she was just astounded at that. So I will say, for me, I appreciate y'all coming prepared to make every lesson a challenge, and I appreciate when y'all come with verses prepared to read and to impart knowledge, and that's why I've always called this a teacher's class, because everyone is a teacher, but it's still
But have all taught.
but it's still so nice to come in here and know that we can talk about issues, and I'm not going to mislead someone by saying something incorrect, and someone here is not. I know someone's going to correct me, so y'all know I go to the edge, and but y'all know I go to the edge, and I do that sometimes on purpose, of course. But I also know that y'all are gonna be prepared to speak God's word and make sure the right point's out. So I'm gonna read this last part, 17 through 19. Trust God for wisdom. God gave these 4 young men knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom. Daniel also understood visions and dreams of every kind. At the end of the time that the king had said to present them, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king interviewed them, and among all of them, no one was found equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, or Azariah. So they began to serve in the king's court. Only question or thing I comment on there to see how they were able to show that they were godly, and that godly is better while staying in their new culture and being a part of it. Can we or did we do that? And that comes back. They showed they were godly, and that godly is better. How? By conforming in what God made their job to be, by basically doing where God put them. They're able to show God and to show that God's way is better.
Well, that's what Jesus did. I mean, he did. He went and communed with sinners. He wasn't with all the Sadducees.
Exactly.
But even remember Paul, he became a tent maker so he could, make his own money while he was
Well, Jesus was a carpenter, so.
That's right, but I mean, all through the scriptures, all these people just,
You know,
I think when we come to
assimilated.
church and Sunday school, like we're doing now, prepares us to go out and do what we ought to be doing,
That's right.
wherever we are.
you know,
We have to, I have to try to be the kind of person my dog used to think I was. And if I can do that, then I'll get along pretty good, and maybe someone else will see that.
I think the difference in them and what we talk about in us, I thought of what Paul told Timothy, and thou hast known from the scriptures that are able to make thee wise unto salvation, that you've known that from a child. Too often, all of our children, all they get about scripture is here on Sunday morning for a few minutes. And that's it. So when they get out in the culture, they don't know, they can't stand.
question, Gerald, do you know history, or Randy? Had these guys, they would have been exposed to the Pentateuch, is that right?
I assume they were over 13, and by 13 they acted like an adult. Jewish culture.
So they would have, and at this time, that at least by word was taught. I mean, right?
Well, the Shema had already been given to the people.
This week I read an
And so
interesting.
they taught their children, they said, when you wake up in the morning, you go to bed at night, when you're
Right.
walking.
Right.
So
So,
they had,
so these guys did have education in the ways of
Yeah.
God.
I read an interesting study this week done with 3 sociologists from secular universities. One of them was the University of Tokyo, where they interviewed 6-year-olds who were exposed to different religions, Christianity, Islam, and so forth. And the Christian kids could almost always pick out the true stories. They could tell a biblical story in a fantasy way without saying, David and Goliath. It was interesting. It blew them away that the kids who had Christian instruction at age 6 could pick out the true stories that they would give them. But the other religions, those who've been instructed in other religions, didn't.
Yeah, I think this is not in our scripture passage, but in the first part of this chapter, I think it's interesting that it says, during the reign of Jehoiakim of Judah, king of Babylon came to Jerusalem to siege it, and the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into the hand of the king of Babylon. Does that mean anything to us today? And also, it says that he carried him to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. Now, how did he know the Jews had all those? Because they showed it to them. And I thought, does that say anything to our leaders today when they let
Oh, yeah.
enemies come over and look at all of our whatever we've got here?
And teach them.
If they just knew the word,
Yeah.
but, you know, this may be a lesson to us, what may happen to our country and how we
yeah.
are supposed to act and
And
live.
that's the thing, I think. We know the end of the story, right?
Right.
We also know what's in the book now, and it's what Daniel and him saw. And this is what's in the book right now.